jet flying dangerously close to U.S. Navy spy plane, actually coming within 5 feet of the thing. That's according to the Pentagon this morning. A spokesman says that the Navy pilot was flying legally in international airspace when the Russian jet cut directly through that plane's flight path. The Pentagon reports it happened over the Black Sea, and the two planes were close for nearly 3 hours.
Looks like you may come across the flight deck, coming in low, bridge wing level.
These US Marines are about to perform their first ever amphibious landing from the Black Sea onto the Ukrainian coastline.
15 amphibious assault vehicles packed with both US and Ukrainian Marines secured a beach south of the port city of Odessa before heading inland as part of the annual multinational naval exercise Sea Breeze.
This year the US Navy deployed 2 ships, the USS Ross, a guided missile destroyer, and this ship, the USS Whitby Island, which acted as a launching pad for the amphibious operation.
The Black Sea is bounded by 6 countries linking southeastern Europe and western Asia. Since the Russian annexation of Crimea in 2014, the security situation here has been very tense at times. This footage shows a Russian fighter jet flying over the USS Donald Cook in the Baltic Sea earlier this year. A similar incident happened on the same ship in the Black Sea in 2014, a move condemned by the US as unnecessary provocation. For Exercise Sea Breeze, however, the US Navy experienced no such hostility.
I would tell you that our interactions with the Russians so far in the Black Sea have been nothing but professional. We've had them sailing off our beam much of the time in the Black Sea, and nothing but professional. They're out there. We know they're out there. We're not hiding from them. It's sort of hard to hide us. We're large, but we're here, and no issues.
For Ukraine, a long-standing NATO partner, and the other allies that operate here, the importance of the Black Sea cannot be underestimated.
The Black Sea was always the window to the Europe for the all Eastern Slavic community. Now it's for Ukraine. We see the Black Sea again as a place of different political interests are connected. And of course, if a global power like NATO or United States will not take care or have at least some presence in this area, it can be a huge challenge to the whole European security.
For the Ukrainian Navy, exercises such as Sea Breeze provide the perfect opportunity to strengthen ties with their partners.
Это сближает наши страны, повышает уровень доверия между военнослужащими разных стран мира и стабилизирует безопасность и обстановку в Черноморском регионе. Поэтому для нас это очень важно. Мы можем найти новых друзей, поделиться с кем-то опытом и сблизить наши страны, построить между ними мосты дружбы.
It is this continued cooperation and support which was reiterated during the recent NATO summit in Warsaw. While it was recognized that Russia has continued to build up its presence in the Black Sea, the NATO position is to remain purely defensive.
When a regional navy meets a navy that, comes from halfway across the globe, that's an exchange of ideas. It's not a matter of escalating towards any event. If you look at the Sea Breeze schedule of events and things we do, these are the same types of interactions and maritime events, air events that we do all over the globe.
For NATO Channel in Odessa, Ukraine, this is Lawrence Cameron.
We start tonight with world reaction to the most recent sanctions the United States Congress has imposed on Russia. The sanctions are being met with resistance worldwide, causing a possible diplomatic problem for America. Meanwhile, the stock market has hit record numbers. Unemployment is at a 17-year low. The car industry and the housing market continue to be solid and strong. It's all good news. Here's the bad news. The Congress can't fix health care, although they have plenty of energy to impose sanctions and cause economic issues for other countries. The starter and backdrop of all of this is alleged Russian meddling in the 2016 election and the Trump-Russian collusion, which nobody can prove. Russian President Vladimir Putin has responded to the sanctions. For more on that tonight, we turn to Manila Chan. Manila?
And we heard from the European Union last week, our European allies. They're not too happy with this move on the Russia sanctions. We know it'll impact their nat gas security. But the man at the center of all of this has been silent for almost a week until now. Vladimir Putin said this to Russian media.
America has taken a step to jeopardize US-Russia relations. And the important thing is that that step wasn't triggered by anything. This is a move to impose illegal restrictions, to attempt to influence other countries, including US allies, which are interested in developing ties with Russia.
It comes as the Trump administration says there is no need for new sanctions against Russia relating to the 2016 election interference issues. Congress overwhelmingly passed the sanctions package last summer with only 5 no votes across both the House and the Senate, instilling a deadline of yesterday for the White House to implement them. However, the State Department said yesterday that since the threat of adding the sanctions is acting as a, quote, deterrent, actual implementation isn't necessary. A State Department official also says that future sanctions could fall on governments and entities that buy from certain Russian firms, but not on the Russians themselves. The U.S. Treasury Department did release a list of Russian oligarchs with ties to Vladimir Putin, including 114 politicians and 96 businessmen, although there are no penalties for legal repercussions for being on that list. The Kremlin has responded, vowing to retaliate and saying it is a, quote, direct and obvious attempt to influence Russia's upcoming presidential election, which Putin is expected to easily win. What am I missing here, Joe? It's unbelievable.
Well, Donald Trump does the bidding for Vladimir Putin again. Donald Trump tries to make Vladimir Putin's life easier again. We showed the clip from 2015 where he was praising Vladimir Putin as a strong leader for assassinating journalists and killing political opponents. Well, just this week, Vladimir Putin had a popular political opponent dragged off the streets in the middle of a protest and taken away by authorities in the broad light of day. This is not a man who's popular in Russia. This is a man who is so unpopular in Russia that he has to throw all of his opponents in jail. We don't really know how popular he is because political opponents that could rise and challenge him are either assassinated or locked away.
Yeah.
Let's bring in Chris Murphy. Is Chris with us?
I'm here.
Yeah, let's bring in Chris Murphy. Hey, Senator, there's so much to talk about, but first, I mean, I've got to ask you, what do you think about Donald Trump once again allowing Vladimir Putin to skate and not implementing sanctions that are so badly needed to send Russia a tough signal?
Well, listen, first, I'm glad to hear Mike Pompeo taking seriously what we believe to be the Russians' attempts to try to influence the 2018 election. But when Donald Trump is sending them totally different signals, telling them that there's really no consequences for your prior manipulation of U.S. elections, that's no deterrent at all. And what we know is that the Russians are still deeply aligned with Donald Trump's political future. It was Russian bots that were spinning out the hashtag Schumer shutdown during the 3-day shutdown, trying to help Trump politically win that fight. And you would expect that they will be aligned with him again this fall, in part because Trump has sort of taken America off the playing field in places like the Middle East, leaving Russia to gain influence all over. So, yeah, I'm glad that Pompeo is serious about this. I know others in the Justice Department are serious about it. But when Russia realizes that there's really no consequence to be paid for what they did in the past, it means that they are likely to go at it again in the future.
I was pleased to hear the director of the CIA come out and say that as clearly as he did. Unfortunately, other people in the administration haven't done that. I just want to ask you, though, it's just sort of a follow-up on what John Heilman was saying before. Where are we as a nation when you have one political party that is being aided by Russian intelligence agencies, whether it's on a government shutdown, by sending out bots, Putin sending out bots that are calling it the hashtag the Schumer shutdown, or then a week later, Russian intelligence agencies guiding their Twitter bots to start talking about releasing a memo that they know would hurt the United States intel community. Where are we as a nation when you have Paul Ryan's party and Kevin McCarthy's party embracing the support of Russian intelligence agencies directly or indirectly and doing their bidding?
Well, as Republicans like Lindsey Graham have reminded his colleagues, Russians are not by nature Republicans. They are aligned with that party temporarily today because they think it suits their interests. Again, because Trump is taking America off the playing field in parts of the world in which Russia wants to exert influence. But that's not to say 5 years or 10 years from now, the Russians could be using their influence inside the United States to hurt Republican candidates. And so Republicans shouldn't assume that this is some permanent alignment between the Russian government and the Republican Party. Ultimately, they can bear the cost of this down the road, just like Democrats are today. And again, listen, I just don't think that we should assume that democracy is going to stick around for the next 200 years. You have to cultivate it. You have to protect it. And when you have a foreign government trying to undermine it, usually this is a place where both parties stand together to push out that foreign influence. It's too bad that's not happening today.
What do you Senator, really quickly, what do you think about Devin Nunes, Paul Ryan's hand-picked intel agency person? What do you think of Devin Nunes drafting a memo that the Justice Department, Donald Trump's own Justice Department, said the release of which would be incredibly reckless? What do you think about Paul Ryan and Kevin McCarthy and Devin Nunes signing off on that?
Well, last I heard, Devin Nunes said he was recusing himself from this investigation, which doesn't appear to be the case. And from what I understand, the FBI simply asked for a little bit more time to understand how this report could negatively impact the FBI in their investigations. And that committee, Nunes as the chair, wouldn't even give them a few days, which suggests that this is a totally partisan endeavor.